Good evening and welcome to Domination Submission Radio. My name is Mike Makai, and I am your host with the most DS, BDSM, kink, and fetish talk on Blog Talk Radio, at least today. Our call-in number, if you want to call in and ask a question or make a point, is 347-857-1862. Again, 347-857-1862. Just put that on your speed dial. You're going to call us again and again. I know this. All right, check out our chat room at the bottom of your screen. If you're listening to us live on Blog Talk Radio, there should be a chat room as you scroll down. That's where you can voice your opinions or ask your questions in text if you have logged in to your free account at Blog Talk Radio. It's pretty easy to do. Just give it a shot. They'll try to sell you your own radio show, but just ignore that and go with a free account that doesn't do much but let you listen to other people's shows. I'd also recommend that you check out our website. The website is at domination-submission.com. That's domination-submission.com. And if you look at the right side of the screen there, you'll be able to see our links to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media. And it's a great way to follow us and keep up with the news of the show and what's going on with the book and that sort of thing. I am the author of Domination and Submission, the BDSM Relationship Handbook, now available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and about 50 other fine booksellers. Check it out. It is also available in a growing number of adult novelty stores, so check out the one nearest you, and if you don't see it, ask them to get it. It's becoming more and more of a competitor for some of the other books that are carried by those folks. My co-host this evening is Little Red, the Amazon switchy masochist extraordinaire. Are you there, Red?
Can you hear me?
Well, I do now that I turned your microphone on. Now, I don't know. Are we still allowed to call you Little Red now that you're a brunette?
That's so not fair because you know it's only a temporary change.
Well, you're still crazy, so that's good. Anyway,
and I'm still adorable, so.
And yeah, adorable too. Okay, so we are talking tonight about coming out as kinky. Coming out as kinky. Now, this is something that you've kind of recently done, isn't it, Red?
Kind of yes and kind of no. My biological mom, my mom, she knew kind of what I did. My godmother, however, had no idea, and she found your book, and we had a small discussion about it.
Well, you know, that's one way to use the book. Even if you don't read it, just put it on the coffee table, and that'll start some interesting discussions, I think. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be at a book signing in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is in North Texas, about 2 hours north of Dallas. And book signing will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., so come on out and visit with me. Buy me a cup of coffee, and you'll probably even get to meet Little Red in person. She'll be there signing autographs, won't you, Red?
I don't know about signing autographs, but...
So I think, if you are anywhere in the area, I'd appreciate if you come on out. And even if you don't want to buy a book, come out and have a chat with me. I love meeting new folks, especially folks in the lifestyle. So now we're talking about coming out as kinky to your friends and family. And if you have a story, if you're listening tonight and you have a story about either coming out, how that went, or why you haven't come out, then call us. The number, again, is 347-857-1862. I would love to hear your story, even if it's a story about why you didn't do it. Sometimes those stories are just as valuable and interesting as the stories about how you did it and why you did it. So I think the first thing we're going to talk about, Red, is what do we mean when we say coming out? You know, when somebody tells you that I've come out as a kinkster, I've come out as a member of the BDSM lifestyle, I've come out as a dominatrix or whatever, what does that mean to you? Does that suggest that they have, told their mother or that they have announced it to the entire world? Which way do you go on it?
More often than not, it means they've come out to friends and family kind of thing, not necessarily all of the friends and family, but a number of them, so that way more people than just people in the lifestyle know about them, kind of like what I did.
I agree with you 100%. It's obviously you don't stop every person on the street and tell them about this, but by the same token, I kind of go back to the way I think about my definition of a lifestyle. It's called a lifestyle because it affects almost every aspect of your life. And so if it's just something that you do in the bedroom, if it's just something you do every other Saturday night at a party, or if it's just what type of porn you watch or something, I don't know that you call that a lifestyle. If the extent of your involvement in the lifestyle is a chat room or Facebook, I don't know if that qualifies as a lifestyle. And along those same lines, I think when we talk about coming out, if you're just coming out to one or two people, I don't really know if that counts as coming out. I think that really counts as one or two people being trusted with your secret. I think the moment it stops being a secret, now it's coming out. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're stopping every person on the street and saying, hey, I'm a dominatrix, or hey, I'm a submissive or a slave or whatever, but it's no longer a secret. And so I think that's the way we're going to kind of approach it tonight. So when we talk about coming out here, we're going to say, hey, it's no longer a secret. It's no longer something that is trusted to just a couple people, a couple key trusted people. This is something that pretty much anyone can find out. And obviously under those circumstances, it can be a little bit risky. So if you're one of those people who has come out, I'd love to hear your story. If you're one of those people who won't come out for very good reasons, I'd love to hear those reasons as well. So by all means, call in and share. And if you want to do it in the chat room, that would be cool too. I understand sometimes it can be a little stressful getting on the radio and hearing your voice coming across the speakers. It took me a long time to get used to hearing how dorky I sound on the radio, so I don't blame you at all.
Oh, you do not sound dorky.
Yeah, everyone sounds dorky to themselves. Trust me on this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what are some of the things that you have to consider when it's no longer a secret, a trusted secret between you and just a few of your closest friends. Now you're coming out and it's out there. What are some of the things that you kind of have to, and we're not getting into necessarily the disadvantages or the advantages right now, but just some generic things that you have to take into account. For example, one of them is once the information gets out there, you can't control it. You really can't control who it's passed on to. So unlike trusting this to your 3 closest friends, now there's almost no way to control who your friends tell and the friends of the friends tell and that sort of thing. And so that can be a little scary when you lose control of that information. I think it also boils down to you can't control the effects that information can have, and you definitely can't foresee what the long-term consequences might be way down the road. So I think those are all things you really need to think about when we're talking about coming out, at least in the sense that you're coming out to the world versus just a few trusted friends.
Well, that, and you always need to be concerned with the area you're in. How many people, once it's out there, how many people are going to begin to treat you differently because of it? How many friends are you going to actually lose over this because you can? What is your boss going to think when they find out, if they find out?
Sure. And what do you have to lose? And not just you, but what do the people around you have to lose? And sometimes this is the part that a lot of people don't think about, is the effects on the people around you. Let me give you an example. Let's just say, for example, that you have a pretty thick skin and you don't mind people knowing about what it is that you do. But you may have a relationship partner who very much cares about what other people think about what you're doing. And so while you are oblivious to the opinions of other people, you might have a relationship partner who lives and breathes and exists on the opinions of other people, and this could be a very, very traumatic process for them to have to go through. So those are things you might want to think about. So let's talk advantages first. What would you say are probably some of the advantages of coming out in a big way about your DS or BDSM lifestyle, Red?
Obviously, if you're in a vanilla relationship and you're coming out in that aspect, how your partner's going to take it. If you're in a close-knit community that everybody is in everybody's business, how is this going to be perceived? How am I going to be perceived for this? What misconceptions do they have?
Right. I see this on Facebook quite a bit, where somebody comes out on Facebook. Now, Facebook is kind of an interesting experiment. It's kind of an interesting environment in which to conduct this little experiment, because it's kind of a mini society in itself, and many times it does not include the people that you work with or your families, and for many it does, but for others it doesn't. But it gives some folks a trial run, so to speak, an ability to experiment and see what does and doesn't work so that they can maybe later apply it to their real lives. But again and again, I see people who come out on Facebook and immediately lose friends, people that they thought they liked, people they thought trusted them and liked them at their core regardless, and yet when they come out and say that they are a submissive or a slave or a dominant or whatever, suddenly they become a pariah. Suddenly they are losing friends. And it's very often a traumatic experience for them to just suddenly realized that these people that they considered friends up to this point would desert them in a heartbeat the minute they think that your ethics are somehow on the wrong side of a question. Have you seen the same sort of thing, Red, where people lose friends on Facebook because of this lifestyle?
I haven't, because everybody pretty much is accepting of me, and what they don't like, they don't choose to see, kind of thing. It doesn't make me any less of their friend, but yeah, I have seen where some people have been shunned, for lack of a better term, from friends they've had for years once they found out that, oh, this is not exactly the person I thought they were. We're still the same people, it's just we do things a little differently behind closed doors.
I have a very, very close friend who was very upset. This was only maybe a couple of months ago, where she invited a friend over, and she's kind of a young person, but she invited a friend over, and the friend went through, where they were going through some old photographs together. And this is an old friend, somebody who'd been her close friend since kindergarten. And they were going through some photographs, and at some point she had saved some fetish-related photographs. And I think at one point there was a poem in there where she had written a poem about some fetish-related material. And the friend read the poem, and suddenly everything changed. It was, oh, you're one of those people, and proceeded to accuse her of being a traitor to the female gender, accused her of being someone who puts up with abuse, somebody who is perpetuating the rape culture in America, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was incredibly traumatic for her to suddenly realize that this aspect of her life, which she pretty much took for granted. I mean, it's kind of like when you're 5 foot 10 inches tall, you just kind of take for granted that you're 5 foot 10 inches tall. You don't think about it every day. And suddenly when one of your friends goes, oh my God, you're 5 feet 10 inches tall, that's unacceptable, and leaves, it can be kind of a shock to you, right? Well, that's kind of the way it was with her, because this was a part of her life, her whole life. And for her friend to suddenly just drop her as a friend, and not just drop her, but insult her and do it in a very cruel way and walk away, was a horribly traumatic experience for her. And I think it's kind of a lesson that we can all take to heart, because you don't know how some people are going to react to this sort of thing, particularly since some people have hot buttons that you just can't predict when it comes to violence or abuse or sexual issues or whatever. So it can be very, very unpredictable. So that's one of the things.
That's where me being pragmatic comes into play. If you can't accept me for the person who's been standing in front of you for 10 months or years or whatever the case may be, just because I have something I do behind closed doors that doesn't affect you at all. You don't see anything about it, really. I'm not, dragging you to play parties. I'm not taking you to munches. Unless you want to go, by all means, I'll take you. But if you can't accept me for that one small thing and everything else that we've done together doesn't matter anymore, then you never truly were my friend.
And I think that's the only way you can really look at this. And you also just have to realize that friends come and go. They really do. People change, and our values change, our perspectives change, and our list of friends will change as well as we go through life. And it's kind of painful sometimes, but it is a harsh reality of life. Now, let's talk about some of the other advantages. What are some of the advantages of coming out in a big way? I'm going to tell you the one that I think is probably at the top of my list anyway, and that is living a lie can be one of the most exhausting things you will ever do. If you hide a very significant part of your life every single day from everyone, it will wear you out. And it will make you profoundly unhappy, don't you think?
Well, that was going to be my point. It's like the adulterers. They live two different lives. You have your mistress, and then you have your wife. After a while, that strains, that facade will crack. And something's going to come out because you can't keep everything straight every single time. Oh, no, honey, I'm working late tonight, and you're going to a munch. Sooner or later, something's going to break.
Right. And it's exhausting. I mean, even if it doesn't break, even if you don't slip up, it's just exhausting, because it really is one of those things that will wear you down, no matter how much you think it doesn't. And just imagine what it's like to be gay and have to hide that from everyone in your life. It's just unimaginable that you would have to devote so much time and energy to hiding something that's such an important part of your life. But by the same token, you have to wonder about the people who go a little bit too far in the other direction. The people who are shouting from the rooftops about their sex lives want really nobody's business for the most part. Let me give you an example. You have this issue about Catholic priests and whether or not Catholicism should allow gay priests to openly declare their homosexuality and to continue to be priests. And everyone is missing the point here. And the point is that why are we discussing a priest's sex life to begin with? Priests are, at least Catholic priests, are supposedly celibate. And so, to get wrapped around the axle on the sex life of a priest is a little bit like asking someone who's on a gluten-free diet whether or not they want whole wheat bread or cream of wheat for breakfast. It's just stupid because they're not supposed to be having it anyway. And for some people, for most people, if we're talking about being gay, for the average person, yeah, it becomes a matter of public discussion or public notice because theoretically they want to marry or at least have long-term partnerships with the people that they want to have partnerships with. And so if you're gay or lesbian or whatever, you may have a same-sex partner. Well, priests don't marry either, so it's kind of a phony issue. And I think that kind of transfers over to the BDSM lifestyle too, because there are an awful lot of people out there who want to make their BDSM lifestyle an issue and want to shout it from the rooftops when 99.9% of us don't care about your sex life. And just like you said, it has no effect. You're not dragging me to your events. You're not tying me to the St. Andrew's Cross. So why do I need to know about your sex life? And so I think you go too far in the other direction as well. I mean, on one hand, hiding your DS or BDSM orientation can be exhausting. But on the other hand, sometimes you exhaust us by not hiding it and just pushing it into our faces all the time.
Well, I mean, I don't go shouting it from the rooftops. I don't go going, oh my God, you have to come to every person I meet. You have to come to a munch or something like that. For me, it's more about my personal choice. So I don't go screaming in people's faces. That's like the Jehovah's Witness that come knocking on your door at 6 o'clock in the freaking morning. It's like, dude, seriously? I'm really good, I promise you. No, I don't need your pamphlets and stuff. I'm quite content with the way I am.
So, Red, are you saying that we shouldn't be going door to door and trying to convert people to the BDSM lifestyle?
No, because, you've seen it. We've been out at munches, we've been out at coffees and things like that, and we've gotten vanillas that come up, sit with us, and start just asking, talking with us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
We're happy to help.
The last local one, you weren't there, Red, but the last local one, a family in the restaurant came up and said, is this a book club? Because a few of them were carrying my book, and they brought the book for me to sign. And so they saw us, some of us in the group, with books, and they're going, is this some sort of a book club meeting? And they kind of just wanted to join in. It was kind of awkward, but it was kind of cute as well. Anyway, so other advantages that you can think of, Red, about coming out to friends and family, making this less of a secret in your life?
Not hiding it anymore. I mean, when my godmom found out, she saw your book because I had it on my bookcase with all my other books. I'm not hiding it. It's not in the back of the closet, the dirty little secret. She was like, oh, so what's this about? And we started flipping chapters, and she was like, what's this? What's this? And it actually was kind of cool to sit down and talk with her and go, yeah, this is what I do. Mm-hmm. This is kind of what I am. And she's like, oh, okay. Do you like it? That was her main question was, am I happy and do I like it?
Well, see, that's great. That is good. And, it does open up a dialogue, and sometimes you find out that people are a lot more understanding and a lot more tolerant than we give them credit for. Even more so, I think sometimes it opens up opportunities for you. It's not an opportunity to convert someone to the lifestyle, but it sometimes opens up opportunities for you that you wouldn't otherwise expect. For example, let's say somebody, one of your friends, one of your family has some connections that could do good things for you. Let's say you're an erotic BDSM writer, all right? You can keep that a secret from everybody, but guess what? Most of the support and word of mouth and that sort of thing that a writer gets is going to be from their friends and their family. And if you cut those people out of the loop, how successful do you think you can really be? Not very. And so there are going to be unforeseen advantages, unforeseen opportunities by being yourself and being upfront and being able to share that part of your life with the people who make a difference in your life. And you never know. Sometimes that one person that you would never in a million years consider to be a business ally or be a supporter of a project that you want to work on, or just somebody who will have your back when you need it. You know, if you are going to meet somebody, let's say, and you're really afraid that something might go wrong, you know, it's nice to have a family member or a good friend who will come get you if you're in trouble, or make that safe call to make sure that you don't get in trouble, or whatever the case may be. Again, it can be very tough trusting those important things to strangers, or to, you know, somebody that you just barely know, when there are friends and there are family members that you theoretically could trust to help you out, but because of the secret, you're unable to. You know, so I think that's a big one that a lot of people kind of overlook. Do you think that people sometimes come out in a big way for reasons other than the fact that they're hoping it will just make them happier in their lives, or that they're just tired of living a lie? Do you think there might be other reasons, maybe another agenda, or what's the word here? A hidden
ulterior
agenda?
Motive?
Ulterior motive? You think there are ever ulterior motives for it?
Well, you know, the whole friend thing, to find out really who's there for you and who only cares about appearances. If your friends only care about appearances and you come out to them and they ditch you, then you figure out real quick who's really your friend and who's really not. Some people might use that as kind of like a friendship test. I think it's kind of ridiculous, but that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that is a possibility. I think that there may also be some people who come out for, I don't know what the word here is. They're not really committed to the lifestyle, but they come out for political reasons, popularity reasons, jockeying for position in certain social circles, people who are just trying to fit in with a certain group. Somebody in the chat room just said shock value. Yeah, you know, there are people who just get off on shocking people. I've literally had a woman tell me that she was into everything. You know, and this is kind of like what you've talked about before in other shows, Red, where you've had people tell you that they have no limits, and you start saying, okay, so you can amputate your fingers and you don't mind, and suddenly they have limits, right?
Yeah.
I've had people tell me that everything is a fetish to them. They're into everything. And so I start going down the list of all the really crazy things.
At that point, I'm breaking out the stilettos going, and I can grind on this where?
Well, no. I mean, I was bringing things up like, you know, scat, urine play, necrophilia, you know, animal sex, you know, and they're going, oh, no. And I'm going, wait. You just said you were into everything, right? So, again, I think people...
the stilettos are great for that, because it's like a hammer and nail to some people. You know, you break out those and you go, okay, so I'm going to grind this into your inner thigh and try to touch bone. Yeah, they backpedal real quick.
But this is exactly one of the things that you have to deal with in this lifestyle, and you've seen it, Brett. I know you have. In fact, I've seen you engaged in these discussions with people where people try to outdo each other. I call it competitive masochism. It's like, well, I can deal with more pain than you can, and pretty soon, you know, you're talking about some really damaging stuff just because it becomes a competition, not anything that anybody really wants to do. And so I do believe that shock value sometimes is an underlying motive, or maybe a hidden motive for some people, because they're just saying things to get a rise out of you or to shock you. And so I have to admit, when I was young, I probably was guilty of that just a little bit too. You know, I would say things that were patently untrue just as a joke, just to get a rise out of some. You know, I can remember as a college student telling people that I was a Satanist, and there was no way I was a Satanist. I mean, I knew nothing about being a Satanist. It was just something I would say just to watch their hair catch on fire over it. So I can kind of...
I love it when their heads spin around and pea soup starts flying out of their mouth like they need an exorcism when you start challenging them like that. It's always funny. I used to tell people I was an atheist for the longest time.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can kind of understand that whole thing of just saying something to get a rise out of somebody, but I think members of the community have to be aware that, you know, that can happen out there, and so we can't always take what people will say and do at face value. I think sometimes we have to kind of look a little deeper. All right, well, we are at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a short break. You're listening to Domination Submission Radio. My name's Mike Makai, my co-host Little Red. We're talking about coming out as kinky, and we will be back in about a minute and a half. are back. You're listening to DS Radio. I'm Mike Makai. My co-host is Little Red. We're talking about coming out as kinky, and what we're talking about here is announcing to the world in a big way that you are a kinkster, that you are freaky, you're into DS or BDSM or whatever it is you're into. Letting the world know, dropping the facade. And we've talked a little bit about some of the things that you might want to consider before doing that. We've talked a little bit about some of the advantages of doing it, one of which, of course, is you're able to stop living a lie, which can be very exhausting, and you have a chance to be happy in living your life your own way. And there's an old saying that there is really only one form of success, and that's to be able to live life in your own way. So I'm a firm believer in that. And you can't define success by material things or how much money you have or whether or not you drive a nice car. I think ultimately you have to define success as whether or not you are living your life in your way and not according to somebody else's rules and ethics and dictates. So let's talk about some of the disadvantages that might pop up to when you announce to the world that you are a member of the BDSM lifestyle. And I can think of a whole lot of them right off the top of my head. And we'll start, I think, well, actually, before we go too deeply into this, I also want to remind you, we're in the second half of the hour here, so I just want to remind folks that I will be in Wichita Falls, Texas, North Texas, tomorrow, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for a book signing at the Hastings Bookstore on Southwest Parkway. And the plan is to drag Little Red with me so that she can meet some of you folks down there as well. I know that she's been looking forward to meeting some of the folks in the Greater Wichita Falls Kink group down there, which is a good group. I've been to their munches many times, and so I'm looking forward to seeing some folks down there. So if you're in the area, come on out and see us. I'll be there. Little Red will be there, and so will a bunch of other people, hopefully. All right, so let's talk disadvantages to coming out as kinky. I can think of one right off the bat, particularly if your partner is still on the fence about whether or not your partner is really going to embrace the lifestyle. And even if your partner has embraced the lifestyle, it's very possible that your partner is uncomfortable with letting the entire world know about what's going on behind closed doors there. And almost by definition, if that person is your partner, male or female, dom or sub, almost by definition, when you out yourself, you're outing your partner as well. So you might want to think long and hard about whether or not you have, first of all, whether or not you even have the right to out your partner while outing yourself, but also what your partner is going to think about that. And so that's something that can be a real disadvantage, particularly if your partner is not prepared, or if your partner thinks they're prepared but is not, it really isn't. So, yeah, sometimes we can assume wrongly that just because somebody says it's okay or somebody says that they're prepared for the consequences, that they really are. And they aren't always able to fully appreciate the unintended consequences that can come from outing yourself. Now, the second thing I want to talk about in terms of disadvantages is your professional considerations. And for the most part, we're talking about your job here. But, for some people, they may be self-employed. They may be retired. They may be unemployed. So it isn't always about the job. But very often it is going to be about the job. And, again, something that Red said about, if my friends can't accept me for who I am, then maybe they're not really friends. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way in the professional world, in our careers, because your boss can have the utmost respect for you, can be your best darn friend in the world, can in fact sympathize entirely with your lifestyle. But there's one other consideration that has to be taken into account here, and that is the person is your boss, not because he's your friend, not because he does or doesn't agree with your lifestyle. The person is your boss because you're there to make money. And it all boils down to a financial question when it comes to business. Are you going to be able to continue making money? Are you going to be successful in the market that you're in? Are you going to be able to compete with the competitors? And if there is some reason why your presence and your lifestyle detracts from that, then it becomes a purely business decision to tell you that you're no longer welcome there. So even if the guy likes you, even if the guy agrees with you, even if the guy happens to be in the lifestyle himself, when your lifestyle becomes something that sabotages the business, and that can happen, then you should expect to be shown the door. And is it fair? I don't know. I have to say that from a purely business standpoint, it is fair. It does make sense. Nobody goes into business to make friends. They go into business to earn a living, to make money, to be successful. And if there is something or somebody that makes that more difficult or makes it impossible, you can expect that something or somebody to be cut out of the equation. So, and unfortunately, that's often going to be you or me. And I say this entirely from experience. It's easy for a lot of folks out there listening to think that I have always been a professional writer and that I have always done nothing but write books about BDSM, but that's not the case at all. I have been an entrepreneur. I've been a corporate marketing weasel, and I have lost a very high-paying, lucrative, and fun job over my lifestyle because at some point somebody came across something online about me and my lifestyle and my multiple partners and my kinky lifestyle and took that to my very religious, very straight-laced, and very conservative boss and said, "Are you aware of what kind of person you have working for you?" And my boss actually was kind of aware of it, but not to the extent that this person was shoving it into his face, and the person actually threatened to make a stink about it, at which point my boss had to make the logical decision to ask me to turn in my resignation. And so I can definitely say that it doesn't matter if your boss likes you or agrees with you or anything. It comes right down to the bottom line, and that is, will your presence and your lifestyle end up being the fly in the ointment, the one thing that cannot be tolerated any longer in your place of business. So be really careful about that and give that some thought, and not just the job you're in now, but the job you might have next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, because you really don't know. And guess what? When it comes to the internet, nothing ever goes away forever. So your Facebook post today might pop up 10 years from now and sabotage a very lucrative job offer, and it will just make you crazy when that happens, because you'll think that was something that was 10 years ago and nobody in a million years would have ever found that, but it will still be there, and it will definitely be painful when that happens. So give that some thought. Now, along the same lines, your lifestyle, coming out in the lifestyle, can also affect your financial well-being, and not just because you might lose a job, but because you may lose opportunities, and you may end up losing your financial stability because opportunities that you were counting on suddenly stop showing up, or they start being withdrawn from you. So let's say, for example, that you are self-employed and suddenly your clients start making their decisions about whether or not they're going to renew their contracts with you based on your perceived morality. And so you may, as I do, live in the Bible Belt, and you can pretty much bet that about 50% of your clients have very strong religious and ethical considerations that they try to apply in almost every aspect of their lives. And so if it is suddenly a question of whether or not they should do business with you when they don't agree with your lifestyle, it can definitely affect your financial bottom line. So take those kinds of things into account, definitely. And I know that you definitely cannot foresee every possible thing that can go wrong, but by the same token, it's pretty easy to say, you know what, there may be an opportunity, even if it's years down the road, and I don't want to sabotage that today by doing something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense and can't be undone once it's done. So now let me just remind you that if you have a story that you want to share about coming out or why you didn't come out, whether it went well or didn't go well, then by all means call in. The number is 347-857-1862. We'd love to hear your stories. I know y'all love to hear me yak, but I like to hear your stories sometimes. And I know that there are some of you out there with some great stories to share. And even if you don't do it this week, think about it and call in a following week. It's not scary at all. It's just like talking to a friend. So call in, talk to me. I'll be your friend. And I want to hear your story. So, again, 347-857-1862. Give us a call. Tell us what you think. Tell us your story, and we'll see if it resonates with our listeners. I know that there are people out there right now listening wondering if they should come out, wondering if how much they should tell their friends, and whether it will come back and bite them in the butt later. You know, it's definitely a hard question to answer for each individual. I know it was for me. And even now, you would think that a guy who writes BDSM books wouldn't have a problem with this issue. But you would be wrong. Because even in just everyday conversations that I have with people, people will say, "What do you do for a living?" "I write." "Oh, what do you write?" It's not always easy to just toss out, "I write books about BDSM." And in fact, I had a meeting today, a meeting with a banker, and that question comes up. "You're a writer. Oh, what do you write?" And you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to wade into this particular swamp this particular time? And most of the time, the answer is probably going to be no. But again, and this is for somebody like me who makes his living talking about BDSM, writing about BDSM, all over social media, talking about BDSM. You would think that I would have no problem with this, but you would be wrong. It's a problem every day, and so you need to kind of think about how much of a problem it's going to be for you when those questions come up. Now, one of the other disadvantages, and this one isn't really unique to the BDSM lifestyle. It really kind of applies to just about any kind of commitment that you make in your life. Let's say you go out and get a tattoo. Well, today it seems like a really good idea, but you may have a life change down the road, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, and suddenly that's not going to be such a good idea. You might have a tattoo that expresses a sentiment which 20 years from now may go completely counter to what you actually believe in 20 years, and so now you've got to do something about that. Well, hopefully 20 years from now they'll have an easy way to remove it. But you can't undo coming out. Once you come out and tell everybody that you are a kinkster, that you are a dominatrix or a slave or something like that, you can't undo that. You can't erase that from people's minds 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And so, 20 years from now, when you want to be, ambassador to China, or you want to be the CEO of IBM, somebody's going to pull up that Facebook post from 20 years ago and says, "Oh, looky here. You were a slave back then. What makes you think you should be CEO of IBM now?" And so you may feel that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Right now, you may feel that there's no risk right now. You may feel that there is no downside to it right now, but you have no idea, and believe me on this, you have no idea where you're going to be 10 years from now or 20 years from now. You really don't. And if you had told me 10 years ago or 20 years ago that I would be doing what I'm doing today, I would have laughed in your face. I definitely would have. And so I definitely encourage you to anticipate the unexpected if there is a way to do that. I do want to make a point here, and I think that this is a really, really useful point, and I'm glad I was just reminded of it because I did want to make this point earlier in the show, and that is that one of the things you should not do, if you really are serious about coming out to your friends and family about your lifestyle, your DS or BDSM lifestyle, one of the things that you don't want to do is make it all about your sex life. And we touched on this earlier when I was talking about gay priests. Again, the bottom line is not whether or not they're gay. The bottom line is, why are we talking about a priest's sex life? It's just stupid. It's dumb. It's not necessary. And so, again, if you frame this as a matter of your sex life, if you frame it entirely in terms of your kink, you are going to fail. Why? Because most people don't care about your kink. They don't want to think about your kink. Think about this for a minute. Do you really, really want to know about your parents' sex life? No, you don't. But what I'm saying here is when you frame this discussion in terms of your sex life, there's no way that ends well. Because for the most part, people don't want to know about your sex life. The way to frame this discussion is to frame it as a relationship dynamic. And this is how I do it. And this is one of the reasons I wrote the book the way I did. You notice it's called the BDSM Relationship Handbook. It's not how to beat your wife. It's not how to tie up your husband. It's not, whips and chains. It's a relationship handbook. It's a relationship dynamic. What the book does is it frames this as a way to relate to the people who are close to you in your life, how to relate to your partners, to your loved ones, to your wives, your husbands, your girlfriends. It's a way to express your love. And you know what? People can condemn you all they want about your sex life, but it's really hard for somebody to condemn you for how you express your love to somebody else. Very hard to do that. I mean, you might express your love to your partner by giving him a teddy bear every day. You might express your love by making him coffee in the morning. You might express your love by bringing her flowers at night. There's 1,000,001 different ways that you can express your love. And you know what? If expressing your love means putting her over your knee and giving her a spanking, who are you to tell me I can't express my love to her if that's the way she likes it? And so by framing this as a relationship dynamic, you make it incredibly hard for somebody to condemn you for it. You make it very, very hard for them to say you are wrong for doing that. Because you know what? It's none of their damn business how you express your love to your partner. None of their damn business. And they know it too. And so what you got to do is you got to take this whole discussion out of the bedroom. You got to take this discussion away from the whips and chains. Because, yeah, you know what? That's a part of it. But that isn't the part of it that you need to discuss with your friends and your family. What you need to discuss with your friends and family is, this is how I relate. This is how I express my love. These are the things that turn me on, but really in a relationship dynamic context, not just, if some stranger walked up at the bus stop and started hitting me with a stick, no, that wouldn't turn me on. And this is the thing you've got to get them away from, because they believe that this all exists in some sort of a vacuum. They believe, many of them believe, that there is some sort of ability of people in this lifestyle to somehow divorce the people from the activity or the toys. And you know what? That doesn't happen very often. Are there people who can do that? Well, sure there are. And there are people out there in the vanilla lifestyle that can do it as well. But I think if you make a point of framing this as a relationship discussion, not a sex discussion, you'll have a lot more success. Now, I do have a caller on the line, and this is Mike from the Netherlands. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing okay.
How's the weather in the Netherlands?
Cold, crappy, and wet.
Yeah, I'll join the club. So what point did you have to make on this?
I don't per se a point, but a more general question, because I like you, I come by a lot of people who claim to be slaves or submissives, etc. But what I would like to stipulate is, at what point can you call yourself a kinkster? I mean, if you like to role play online and call yourself a slave, can you really call yourself a kinkster?
Well,
if you like being tied up a little now and then while having sex? Does that make you kinky?
Well, anything outside the mainstream, almost by definition, is going to make you kinky. Now, whether or not it's a kinky lifestyle, I think that's the question right there. I'm going to tell you what I think, Mike, and that is that I think everybody's kinky in one way or another. Your kink is not my kink, but everyone's kinky one way or another. And I found that out at a very early age, and I think that probably warped my brain as a young teenager. But I do believe that as a 12 or 13-year-old, I came across my dad's stash of porn. My parents were swingers, and so I came across their stash of porn, which included pictures of them doing a lot of crazy things with a lot of different people. And I think that I learned at that age, from that experience, that everybody has a hidden, sexy, kinky side that they don't show at other people, even your mom and dad. And that was an eye-opening experience for me. And so I'm going to say, Mike, I'm going to say that everybody is kinky, one way or another. They may not ever reveal that side of themselves to other people, but it's there. I don't think we can be human without having that. Now, does that mean you're part of a kinky lifestyle? Not necessarily. Again, it becomes a lifestyle when it starts to affect everything in your life, when it starts to affect where you live, who you choose as a partner, what kind of a job you take, what you do for a living. Look at me. I write about BDSM. It pays my rent. I talk to people about this all day long. I wake up in the morning to messages about whether or not there's a BDSM convention going on this weekend or something. I mean, there's almost no part of my life that isn't affected by my kink lifestyle. Now, does that mean that I am, having kinky sex all day long, 7 days a week? No. But it does affect almost every aspect of my life. And so I think you got to look at it that way. And, I think everybody's kinky, but not everybody is part of the kink lifestyle. Good answer, Mike, you think?
Yes, but that also raised me a second one, kind of linked to what you were talking about. Say the Catholic priests, the ones that are gay and pedophiles.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that to some extent it's a kink. But how can you draw the line between a kink and a perversion?
Good question, Mike. One man's kink is another person's perversion. I think a perversion implies a moral judgment on what you're doing. I would be the last person to try and judge somebody's kink as being moral or immoral. But I think when you betray the trust that has been placed in you as a priest or as a ward of some young people, or as a teacher, or as a babysitter or whatever, I think once you betray somebody's trust, it becomes a bad thing. Now, again, I'm not going to moralize about whether this is right or wrong, but I think it's always going to be wrong when you betray somebody's trust. Even if you're doing the right thing, you can still betray somebody's trust. So I think that's the way I would look at it, Mike. We're at the end of our show, so thanks for calling in, Mike. I hope you call in more often.
Okay, will do.
All right. We are pretty much at the end of our hour. I think Little Red had some other things come up that she had to take care of, and so hopefully she will be at the book signing tomorrow. If you want to chat with her and get her autograph, and I appreciate it if you show up and support the cause. And we will be back next week with more Domination and Submission Radio. I'm Mike Makai. My co-host has been Little Red, and I hope you'll be back next week for DS Radio. Bye-bye now.